Come here, come here, come here. What? I'm starting to think that you don't hear too good, because this don't look like no school to me.
I'm not cutting off my dress,
Do you have any idea how much trouble you could be in if any...
Now, how does Tommy save DMAC? That's going to be a big problem for him going forward, just like it was for Ghost when it came to keeping Tariq away from the streets. On one hand, you have DMAC, who at this moment in time, you just simply cannot actually control. He's back in town and now wants back into the game. He's trying to persuade Diamond to smooth things over with King Kilo, speak to his uncle Tommy as well, and if he doesn't get back into the CBI, he's probably going to find himself with another crew or in another messy situation with some outsiders. And if that happens, it creates even more mess for Tommy and the CBI. But mixed in this whole situation with DMAC is the death of Mad Dog, King Kilo's nephew. He's someone who's growing very impatient by the day, and he wants DMAC dead. A hit that was actually confirmed by Diamond. He agreed to get rid of DMAC to keep the peace with King Kilo and the RDs. In his mind, he decided enough was enough, because I do think he was tired of Tommy going behind his back and making all the calls. That is something I broke down earlier in the week, so if you guys haven't seen this breakdown, it definitely is worth a watch. But how does Tommy save DMAC? Can he even save DMAC? That's the topic of discussion in today's breakdown, and we will also be going through an exclusive episode 2 clip. Joseph Sikora did do a takeover of 4 Stars' Instagram page right after episode 1, and he did release a clip of him confronting DMAC. That does take place in episode 2. But let's discuss Jenard and Diamond's plan first, how Shanti comes into the equation, and then we'll come to Tommy's plan and how he plans to save him, if he can save DMAC, in Power Book 4 Force Season 3. Now we know what DMAC did was stupid in killing Mad Dog at the end of Season 2. He just killed a cop who was Seamus. He then got sent to Great Shaw's Youth Academy because he wouldn't follow simple orders to just lay low. And by the way, this was all shortly after he'd just been shot. You would have thought it would have taught him a lesson, a near-death experience, being shot and just surviving. We've seen other characters such as Monet and recently Rock in Raising Kanan. They changed their stance on the game after they were shot, albeit short-term. The difference is, DMAC is just a kid. Characters like Monet and Rock, they've been through more than DMAC has, they've lost more than DMAC has, and that I guess changes your perspective when you go through what they've been through. Bottom line is, kids are going to be kids, and he just simply couldn't help himself. He heard Diamond wanted to get rid of Mad Dog after he killed Leon, but DMAC didn't know that Mad Dog was the nephew of the leader of a crew that the CBI had just created a coalition with. That's King Kilo. Again, kids are going to be kids. So, looking at another example across the Power universe, Kanan did something very similar back in Season 1. Rock had just created an agreement with Unique. It wasn't a coalition as such, but she came to an agreement on boundaries and territory. Kanan then being Kanan, wanting to be in the game, him and D-Wiz went and killed Buck 20 on the corners that Rock actually gave up. And just have a look at the knock-on effect it caused in Season 1 and also into Season 2. That also actually resulted in the death of D-Wiz. And we are going to come to some consequences for DMAC and how he needs to face some consequences in just a moment. But same thing here. DMAC killed Mad Dog trying to get back into the game with the CBI, and now there's a huge knock-on effect. Now it does also have to be said, Diamond did also want to get rid of Mad Dog as well. We can't overlook and just brush over that point. Even though Jenard told him that he was King Kilo's nephew, he still said he had to go for what he did to Leon. The difference between what DMAC did and what Diamond would have probably done is, I guess, Diamond would have probably made the hit look like it wasn't a CBI hit. Either way, it is kind of hypocritical coming from Diamond. It's a point I raised in my Tommy vs Diamond breakdown. I mean, yeah, Tommy has been hiding things, but so has Diamond. But on DMAC, Diamond gave the go-ahead and Jenard went and grabbed DMAC right at the end of episode 1. Now we know nothing's actually going to happen to DMAC in the short term. We've all seen the teasers and trailers where Tommy brings him into the game. He's at what I believe will be JP's funeral and also in the game with Marshall. We also know Jenard won't kill him yet because of Shanti's plan. The plan that Shanti came up with earlier on in the episode was to use DMAC for a couple of weeks and then serve Tommy and Diamond up to King Kilo and the RDs. I'm not sure how Jenard then explains it to Diamond, why he hasn't killed DMAC and why he's let him go. I guess we'll get the answers in episode 2. But we know it's because Shanti is making the calls from behind. So we know nothing will happen to DMAC in the short term, and also because Tommy will definitely be protecting him. So, coming over to Tommy and DMAC. It is worth remembering Tommy hasn't actually seen DMAC since Season 2 Episode 5. The last time Tommy saw him was when he brought him back home after he was hanging around with Marshall. So it's been 6 episodes since they've seen each other, but they did drop an Episode 2 exclusive over on Instagram, and this is the interaction between Tommy and DMAC.
I'm starting to think that you don't hear too good, because this don't look like no fucking school to me.
I'm not cutting off my fucking dress,
Do you have any idea how much trouble you could be in if anybody finds out what you did?
Now, it is actually very funny because D-Mac said he's not going to cut his dreads off, which is what Great Shores wanted him to do, but he was more than happy to go and get a skin fade for Genesis when she mentioned she doesn't date guys who have dreads. But again, kids are going to be kids.
Go to that fucking school, that's fine. But you need to figure out how to be your own man. Get you a job.
A job? I'm getting back at CBI.
As long as I'm in, you out.
Now, D-Mac wants back into the CBI, he wants to make some real money, but Tommy will make it clear as day. As long as he's in the CBI, D-Mac is out. He needs to put his mind to use, and if he doesn't want to be in school, then fine, go get a job. The problem is, D-Mac grew up in this life and he just keeps on choosing this life. Those were Tommy's words back in 2005 when he was in conversation with JP.
JP, D-Mac chose this life, but he keep choosing it.
There was a bit of blame being thrown around here in this conversation between Tommy and JP in terms of who was at fault, and I don't think it is actually Tommy's fault. JP wasn't in D-Mac's life for a large portion and he did have to take accountability. Since Tommy came to Chicago and found out that he had a nephew, he's actually tried to do right by D-Mac from day one. Even though he did have him work for him earlier on in season 1, he had him sitting in the cash house counting bills, he was still away from the street shit. Since Tommy's been in town, he's told him to use that mind of his for the good. If it weren't for Tommy, if Tommy carried on driving at the end of episode 1 in season 1 and linked up with Rodolfo in LA, would D-Mac and JP have ever reunited? Would JP have ever found out that D-Mac was his son? Or would D-Mac have just been some collateral damage for Jannard in a street war? Since Tommy's been in town, all he's tried to do is protect him. Tommy also hasn't spoken a lot about his past in New York since he's been in Chicago. There have been a few moments where he's brought up his former partner, he has spoken about Ghost a few times, but he hasn't actually told JP or even D-Mac about Tasha, Yasmin, what happened to Raina and also Tariq. And I do think that's why Tommy is very protective when it comes to D-Mac. It's not just the path that Tariq went down, it's not because he's seen the script before with one of his other nephews in Tariq, it's also because he's had to help bury Raina, which was a huge consequence of this life. Tariq's choices and actions led to Raina's death. There are no other ways to put it, he was mainly to blame. And I don't think Tommy wants to do that with D-Mac. If he isn't careful now, then his actions may have a knock-on effect, just like it did with Tariq and Raina. Just like Kanan's action had a knock-on effect with D-Wiz's death. Streets definitely needed a body earlier on in Raising Kanan season 1, and you can probably argue the same case here. So when you think about the history and what we've seen before, JP might actually even have to bite the bullet for Mad Dog's death instead of D-Mac. And those are the consequences I'm talking about when it comes to his actions and choices. Unfortunately, there's only so much Tommy can do at this moment. There's only so much Tommy can protect him. Sometimes the only way to learn is the hard way. I had a friend who kept on speeding, driving fast, driving recklessly, until he crashed. He didn't learn his lesson until that crash. Unfortunately, that's just how humans are wired sometimes. We don't learn until we actually fall right deep into that hole. You can have mentors like Tommy, your big brother, sister, or other family and friends to tell you don't make this mistake because I've been there and done that. But again, when you're a kid, you always think you're in the right. You always seem to think you know it all or know better. In the streets, you make that mistake, then it really can be costly. You can end up losing loved ones because of your actions and choices. That's the only way humans tend to learn from mistakes. Again, if we were to take a recent example from Raising Kanan season 4, Kanan had been through a lot of lies, manipulation. He grew up in a drug dealing family where his mom is a queen pin, his uncles are also in the game, he's grown up in the environment, in the hood, but the only thing he lacked apart from the loss of D-Wiz in season 1, the only thing he lacked was the loss of real loved ones. That's when you see your character change. He then recently lost Famous and he turned. He then lost Crystal and also lost more of himself. That's the only way D-Mac will probably learn. When and if his actions cause the death of maybe JP, maybe even put his girlfriend Genesis in danger. Those two characters in my opinion probably are in danger because D-Mac does need those consequences to kind of grow. He definitely is going to have to learn the hard way. Tommy will protect him even though he's made mistakes and he's going to keep on making mistakes. Tommy will for sure protect D-Mac. And this is where I want to come back to the description for episode 3 and 4. In episode 3, it is said that Diamond and Jannard will devise a plan to deal with D-Mac. In episode 4, Tommy will find a way to protect D-Mac. So Tommy will always protect him, but by protecting him, does that mean he's finally accepting D-Mac into the game? At what point does Tommy finally admit he's gonna have to baptize D-Mac?
It's time for you to be baptized into this life. Just like Kanan did for me and Ghost. Who?
Is it when he's kicked out of the CBI himself, when he becomes a lone wolf? Is it when Tommy realizes that Diamond went behind his back and made that call to get rid of D-Mac? That's definitely something that will no doubt cause a bit of issues and tension between Tommy and Diamond if that is revealed. At what point does Tommy accept DMAC into the game? It's probably going to be the death of JP or a loved one. I mean, there is no other way to put it. And only then will Tommy probably realize he has no choice but to teach him the game. Teach him exactly what Kanan and Breeze taught him. Teach him what he learned from Ghost, including the mistakes they made as well. In the short term, I do see Tommy trying to keep him straight, trying to keep him away from the game, protecting him from King Kilo and the CBI, trying to mend his relationship with JP. But in the end, there are going to have to be consequences because unfortunately the streets do need a body, which I do think DMAC needs to go through and feel for him to learn. With that being said, that's where I'm going to open the floor for you guys in the comment section. Drop all your thoughts and predictions down below on how you see the situation with DMAC, and can Tommy really protect him? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.